Hello, welcome to the Charlotte Show's Sunday brunch. I really wanted to do this from my kitchen, but I am at my parents' house, and as such, it's their kitchen, so I can't. I'm going to bring in my guests like it's a real Sunday lunch show. Also, you can tell it's the morning, can't you? Because my eyes are not yet open. I'd like to welcome to Sunday brunch my first guest, Alex Hurst. Hi, Alex. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Charlotte. Good morning, viewers.
Morning. And, of course, with no further ado, our second guest, Chris Shipman. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. How you doing?
I'm good. I feel a bit manic because I was organising this a little bit late. Because I took a leisurely morning. Right then, Newcastle United are playing in 1 hour's time. How exciting for us all. The team sheet is out. Lee Foster's already said, for fuck's sake, no Gale, no Carroll, big Jow. So I think we can reasonably assume from that Joe Linton is starting. Alex, did you expect that? Let me get the team sheet up, but you tell me, did you expect that? Are you delighted to hear it?
No, I'm not delighted. I expected him to select two players that aren't good enough to play in the Premier League, and Kraft and Joe Linton, so we're already at a disadvantage there. West Brom are buzzing. Tell you now, West Brom see the team sheet, massive list. Joe Linton, Kraft, fill your boots, lads. Jeff Hendrick is just a hilarious selection on every level. This is a man
whoa, you're getting well ahead of yourself. Right, let me read it out. And for those of you who haven't seen it, and Zenovius has said, Gale must be the mole.
Not a bad shout.
Yeah, maybe. We've got Dubravka, Kraft, Lascelles, Clark, Dummett. Oh, we did want Dummett back. Hayden, Shelby, Willock, Hendrick, Fraser, and Joe Linton. Right, go back into your thoughts, Alex.
Dummett, who's Dummett coming for?
Lewis, I think.
Yeah, so Lewis has dropped.
Yeah.
Like Hendrick, the selection of Hendrick ahead of the Longstaff brothers. Maybe I'll open it to you guys. What on earth does Jeff Hendrick bring that, say, Matty Longstaff doesn't? And that's, in terms of players being scapegoated, which they have been under Bruce. Bruce is widely reported in the press, even by his pals, as blaming Sean Longstaff for their Sheffield United defeat, which is a bizarre conclusion to draw from that fixture. Whose fault was it we went down to 9 men against Southampton? Was Jeff Hendrick partly responsible for that, for the most ridiculous sending off in the most ridiculous of circumstances, quite possibly? And the fact that he just walked straight back in today, a little bit offensive.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? That comment from Zenovius, Gale must be the mole. Now I just think anyone who's been dropped, or possibly both Longstaff brothers, are the mole, because that's the only thing I can think of. Surely, Chris, what do you make of it?
It's hardly inspiring, is it? And just on Jeff Hendrick, is he hoping that the goals are going to come from Jeff Hendrick? I mean, I guess he's like up there with our top scorers that are available at this point, which is pretty depressing. But yeah, I mean, there's no huge surprises. Unfortunately, I think we're all kind of clamoring for Gale as the kind of the best of the options there. But just this persistence with Joelinton, in spite of all the evidence to the contrary, is baffling, but in the same sense, unsurprising given the way that Steve Bruce has kind of chosen squads over his time with us. So not holding out a huge amount of hope.
No, and I haven't looked at West Brom's team sheet, and if I did, it wouldn't mean a great deal to me, because I don't really follow West Brom. So, Gil says, could Big Joe be the mole in a reverse psychological manner? So it's like punishing him by putting him on the pitch. Maybe. So then we've got some questions coming in. It's been an absolutely mental week following Newcastle United. It was a mental Friday. It's just Friday following Newcastle with the sort of claims of treason in the training ground, which is just so good. I just love that so much. Alex, did you want to jump in about the team before we start talking about the Mad Week?
Like it has just dawned on me that not only are like Hendrick and Kraft and Joe Linton, like not only are they not very good, like I think they are genuinely the three worst players in our entire squad. Like there are no players worse than them available to select for Steve Bruce in this must-win game, a game that he must win. It just screams a bit of trying to get sacks. And I know I'm being conspiratorial, and I'm quite rightly after the week we've had, I think. But like, just the bloke wants his £4 million, and I want him to get it. I'm backing it. Our money.
Do a whip round.
Money belongs to us. Sorry.
We could do a whip round.
We have. We're still paying for season tickets. The money is ours. Comes from us. Get it to Steve Bruce and get him fucked off.
Davey just says that Steve Bruce has said it isn't a must-win. All right. Imagine your head coach saying that. But no, we must.
If you can't beat second bottom West Brom, who have won 3 games all season, who can you beat?
Yeah, it's a good question. People are now calling him Mo Linton, which is really funny. This week's been so mental. I don't even know where to start. I feel like all over the place because we've obviously got the team sheet. We've got this extremely important game, regardless of what our head coach says, to consider and to discuss. But then it's also going to have to be considered in the context of a week where Steve Bruce has been barging his players. He's been banning journalists. There's been more news on the takeover. If you haven't listened to the free pod that Alex did and put out this on Friday, please do. We had Youssef, who's one of our writers, come on and really dissect what the ruling on the arbitration stuff meant for us. So yes, just a really good listen if you haven't. So that kind of like I'm gonna shelve the takeover-y type stuff at the moment for this show, unless people are desperate to talk about it. B Gardner says, in Mad Bruce logic, is he trying to get us relegated in order to keep his job, but in the championship? Chris, do you think that's possible?
I think in the mad world of Steve Bruce's head, it's eminently possible. If we go down, he'll be making the case that no manager has got more promotions from the championship than Steve Bruce or something like that, like 3 or 4 or whatever it is. He's proven himself at that level and somehow thinks that is credentials enough to be manager or anywhere near this football club. I think that might well be Steve's angle. Crazy.
I'm sorry, your response was very good and true, but I can't stop laughing at the comments that are coming in because Jamal Lewis is one, but this is really good. Snitchy and Atsu. These are really funny. Everybody keep doing these. I love them. Taylor Payne. Hi, Taylor. He says, Jeff Hendrick, discuss. I mean, Alex started on Jeff Hendrick. I mean, where do you even start? What do you say? Why is he getting in the team ahead of a Longstaff? Like, Alex?
I had a journalist call me from an Irish newspaper to ask me why Newcastle fans hated Jeff Hendrick so much. And I kind of turned the question around on him and said, well, why do Ireland fans like him so much? And he went, they don't. They hate him. We're just trying to like marry up the 2 levels of dislike. And I just kind of put, if you want a player who, kind of, it's almost like Sunday league football, isn't it? When you need a player, like someone ring Jeff, someone ring him. He'll play. He always plays. Yes, I know he's shite, but he will play. He'll turn up. He'll pay the £3. He'll wear shin pads, so we won't have that issue with the ref. He'll play. And it's like you've already got Joe Linton playing, who I always seem to forget is on the pitch. You've got Jeff Hendrick playing, who I always seem to forget is on the pitch. Like in the end, is Steve Bruce trying to build this kind of 11 that you just don't know it's there. You don't know who's playing, don't know the names of the players.
It's that wheel that he just spins and does. Like, it makes no sense. Richie is on the bench, so do you think he'd come on? Do you think today? I mean, people are just writing like John Joe Sherlock now. Ratty Longstaff. I will stop with this. Do you think? I've lost my question in my brain. Oh well. Oh yeah. Do you think the players are going to be playing for the manager today, the head coach? Like, given everything that's been going on, given how many people are now crushed under the bus at Steve Bruce's behest, isn't the word I want. It's still very early for me. Chris, do you think we'll see today whether or not he's kept the dressing room?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, there've been a number of games throughout Steve Bruce's time at the club where we have questioned whether this was the game where we would see the players turn. And to date, while they've been inept, to put it mildly, in a number of games, they have tended to pull results out the bag to a degree. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to say, but I think it's going to be incredibly interesting to see. There has to be a point at which the players are like, we're done. And obviously we know at this club and other clubs that does happen. The players do just kind of straw that breaks the camel's back, that kind of thing. So I think it will come at some point. I wouldn't be drastically surprised if it was today, but equally, there could be something that kind of pulls it together. I don't know. But Steve Bruce's luck and just his ability to hang on is baffling. Yeah, I'm not sure necessarily.
Alex, what do you think? I thought he'd lost the dressing room fucking ages ago, and then it was like John Shelby bound and gagged on a podcast, being like, "No, he's brilliant, brilliant." What do you think?
Yeah, has he ever had it? He basically bought loyalty. John Joe Shelby, 80 grand a week, yes sir, no problem. Come and sit next to me at lunch. Matt Ritchie, after all I've done for you, new contract, thanks. He gave new contracts to several players at the end of last season. Andy Carroll, we've been there and done that, still being paid to play football for Newcastle. So I think that the guys he's literally bought off probably do retain some sort of loyalty. And like you said, John Joe's out there telling everyone that Leeds, who battered us twice, he wouldn't want to play for them. He's much happier under Steve Bruce. I reckon Leeds are much happier, John Joe, that you're playing for Steve Bruce instead of them as well. Works both ways, that relationship. I don't know. It's one of those ones where the team selection is so bad, and it's not like people will refer to injuries, and people are going to talk about the lads that are out, and obviously that makes a huge difference. Doesn't excuse picking the worst team. It looks like a team that he would like to draw 0-0 with, to be honest. Maybe he'll get that, and then we'll all be, the misery will continue. It'd be interesting to hear from people in the comments. Actually, a lot of people I know, not a lot of people, some people I know hate Bruce so much that they begrudge him a win. They're so desperate to see him sacked that they'd rather we got beat to kind of make sure he was gone. To try it, they basically think that a defeat would be better for Newcastle staying up than a draw or a bad win, because Newcastle are so bad. It'd be interesting to know if you guys, anyway, do you two agree with that? Do you want to see that the team get beat to get Bruce gone?
I didn't realise you had the host hat on today, Alex. Yeah, no, it's a question that comes up quite a lot, isn't it? When we've been doing these, people losing patience with the team and with Bruce and with how shit it is, and wanting us to just lose so that he goes. I think it's optimistic to assume he would go if we keep losing. I don't know that it's not a given at this ridiculous club. It's not a given, and so I don't want to hedge on that. I feel, Alan Little's just written, when, if ever, would Ashley get rid of Bruce? If ever. Oh God, imagine 10 years down the line, a 70-year-old Steve Bruce just prodding players with his cane. I don't know. So, but I think fundamentally, I still want us to win. I just want to see us win. I want to see some. Why is the word pizzazz in my head on the pitch? But
don't think we're going to be seeing any pizzazz today.
What about you, Chris?
I mean, I think just from a realistic point of view, I agree with everything you've just said. I don't know if Steve Bruce is necessarily going to be sacked if we lose today, if we lose the next game, if we lose the game after that. It's and I think realistically, the more concerning thing is, if we do get relegated, it's going to be incredibly, and I know that we've said this on podcasts and this show, previously, it's going to be incredibly difficult to kind of come back up. And I think that, I think Steve Bruce is not necessarily going to get sacked. And I think going down would be hugely damaging, not just even for the medium term. We've seen from the likes of Leeds, a big club that got relegated and took 16, 17 years to come back up or whatever it is. That's a long-term situation that we definitely don't want to find ourselves in. Steve Bruce, he might be here at the start of next season, as he says. I hope not, but he might be. But realistically, you would hope that he's not going to be in the game too much longer. And at some point, either we're going to get taken over or he retires. But I want us to win today, to stave off relegation. Not because I want Steve Bruce to be hanging around, but I think realistically he's not going to get sacked, is he?
No, and I think we also have this really good opportunity. God, it's so depressing to say that because we're 17th. But the results this week have gone our way. So if we do win, that's a big if. That does make me feel a little bit more comfortable. I don't know. Alex Danielle, oh God, his name's Daniel, but he put an E on the end a few weeks ago. Absolutely, Alex.
Great content.
It's like he's not Italian. It was just that there was somebody else writing comments with the same name. Absolutely, Alex. A defeat is better. Although I'd like to see Bruce stay as his replacement, if his replacement is going to be as bad but not as funny. Yeah, that's a good point. I took it out of the editorial in the most recent fanzine, I think, but I had originally written like, whoever comes after him, I want the entertaining press conferences still. So. But yes, I think a lot of people are. Tim Wood says, never want us to lose, but never expect us to win. Conorrhea, that's a nice name. Says, how frail do you think 70-year-olds are? Yeah, I know. As I was saying that, I was like, they're not that old. But Bruce, it's Bruce at 70, not a normal 70-year-old. Jamie C says, if we lose today, Bruce has to go and let Jones take charge for the next quote-unquote winnable games. What do you think of that, Alex? I don't know that Graham Jones is the sort of messiah that we've all. I mean, it's one. He is Italian. Sorry,
the mole sire.
Pardon?
The mole sire.
Yes, he could be the mole sire. It could be him, like desperate to get the job. Alex, what do you make of that? I just think. I don't know. Like, obviously, he's had some impact, but is he the answer?
No. We should hire a proper manager, which we haven't done since 2016 when we hired Rafa. I did a podcast on our Patreon platform with a Luton fan about Jones's only managerial gig in Luton, and he wasn't hated by the Luton fans, but I'm starting to get pissed off with this stupid formation. It's doing me head in. We tried it. It worked well at Everton, and then every team since has been like, all right, you're not going to play with any wingers. We will adapt accordingly. And as a result, as we keep saying on our podcasts, our fullbacks keep getting exposed. We keep conceding goals from either goals literally from the fullback positions or the fullbacks being rinsed, and we won't change it. And I just think that Jones. Anyway, this Luton fan said, even though that there were some good days under Jones, he just wouldn't change the formation. Doesn't matter who was injured. Doesn't matter who wasn't playing or suspended. He wouldn't change the formation. Sound familiar? Joe Linton.
Yeah, but having said that, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I guess it's the formation rather than the players. We were calling for consistency a while back, but I suppose that was more with the lens of who's playing and when, rather than the formation.
Take everyone back to the start of the season, and this is how ridiculous Steve Bruce is. Steve Bruce spent the whole of pre-season playing 4-4-2. He spent the whole of pre-season telling anyone who'd listen that this season we were going to play 4-4-2 with two strikers because he'd always done it. 2 games in, he drops the formation. Don't talk to me about consistency, Charlotte. He's had his chance about consistency, Steve Bruce, because he went from 4-4-2, we beat West Ham, we got hammered by Brighton, and he just shit the bed again and went back to 5 at the back. And you hear that sometimes, like, oh well, the formation we play is better than playing 5 at the back. True, it's not a binary choice. We could play 4-4-2, we could play 4-2-3-1, we could play 4-3-3 instead of playing Joe Linton as a striker playing outside the box on the right-hand side. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of Jones.
Okay, wow. Okay, so Jones isn't the answer to Alex. What about you, Chris? Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't think he's the answer, but there have been times, and quite a few this week, where I'd rather see Jones than Bruce. But that's comparing shit with even more shit for me. Yeah, he's not the answer, and clearly in terms of his record, as Alex says, that podcast is a really interesting listen from the Luton fan. I don't necessarily have any confidence that Graham Jones, as the manager, brought in with the fixture list that we've got after the next few games. And realistically, if he is sacked, Steve Bruce is probably going to get a few more games. So those supposedly winnable games that we've got are not going to be an option for Jones. Is Graham Jones really, with the fixture list towards the end of the season, going to pick up enough points once Steve Bruce is eventually sacked? If he is, no, I'm not so sure. So yeah, it's neither them probably for me, really.
Yeah, it's very depressing. I think it was kind of amusing to me when everyone was like, when we played better after Jones's first game, was that Everton? I think that was Everton. And everyone was like, oh, Graham Jones, good old Graham Jones. He's like, he's going to fix it. And then it hasn't worked since. People are now talking about Steve Bruce going to the toilet in his bed. So thank you, Alex, for that. Norman said a really disgusting thing that I can't put on the screen. Oh, it's horrible. I don't want to talk about poo anymore. There is a question. Oh, it's probably gone. It's gone. There's been so many comments. Oh my goodness. I had a question off George Culkin on Twitter, who is a friend of the show. He said, question for the panel, who in the NUFC squad would you most or least like to fight and why? Clearly, this is a reference to the shoulder barging attack on Matt Ritchie this week that was broken in the news. Alex, who would you most or least like to fight in the squad?
Well, least would be Andy Carroll, who has already broken a teammate's jaw in training in 2010. So that, to me, that's a closed case. The man who broke a friend at the time, broke his jaw in anger at work in the workplace. You'd have your hands full, Charlotte.
Those are just the things that happen when it's a load of men.
Yeah, these things that happen up and down the country every single week, every team, every week. Least would be Matt Ritchie. Sorry, most. I would like to fight Matt Ritchie because Bruce has told us this week you get an apology immediately. He definitely apologised. That happened. 100%. Steve Bruce tells the truth all the time. Yeah.
Chris, who would you like to fight?
I think
or not like to fight?
I'll go with least like to fight Federico Fernandez because he's an Argentinian centre-back and he is hard as nails, even though he's not as aggressive as maybe Andy Carroll or Matt Ritchie. So I think he could do some damage if provoked. So I probably wouldn't want to provoke him. And then most want to fight. I mean, that's a slightly strange way of framing things. But I think probably if Luke Edwards is to believe, Matty Longstaff could just be blown over. As he's so lightweight now, that's why he's not getting games. So Matty Longstaff, although really, I just want to put an arm around him and give him a cuddle because
you have to provide some context, Chris. There, surely.
Sorry.
You have to provide some context. Some people watching might not know to what you refer.
So there was a podcast a few weeks ago, one of the free ones. As with all the podcasts, definitely worth a listen. And Luke Edwards was the guest, and one of the really interesting things that was talked about was the disappearance of Matty Longstaff. And Luke said that the reason that he had not been played was that he'd lost a lot of weight, which seemed a bit of a strange kind of thing at the time. Worrying and strange. So yeah, he's if things are to be believed, then a gust of air could blow him down the street at this point.
Well, that's a good one. I think I don't want to fight anyone. I'm very much a lover, not a fighter. But I think maybe Miggy, because I just don't think he has it in him to throw a punch.
He'd smile while he was doing it, wouldn't he?
He'd be like, no, he'd be smiling as I'm pummeling him, like, thank you for beating me up. I don't know. I don't want to beat anyone up. I don't know. George is watching. He says, "What island is Alex currently a castaway on?" I suppose that's because your hair's long. Maybe.
Cut it myself last week, George. Not like you noticed.
Much longer last week. A2 says, "How large must Bruce's collection of nudes be with the football industry?" And this, I put this up because there are a lot of comments coming in about the pundits and being friends of Steve Bruce and stuff like that. The comments are coming in thick and fast today, so I'm losing them a little bit. Yeah, I know. Gil said, "How could you fight Miggy?" I can't fight anyone. I'm really soft, so I'd never do it. Anyway, how large must Bruce's collection of nudes be within the football industry? I love the idea that he's got like a Rolodex of nude photographs printed out. Alex?
Hard one to answer. Thanks for coming to me.
You raised your eyebrows.
I think the question is not how big is the collection, is how is he procuring them? That's the worry for me. How is he, is this does he have some sort of like network of spies? And that's why he's been so offended this week. Yeah, Moles. And that's why he's talking about treason, because it's normally him doing the undercover work, and now the tables have turned, and that's why he's upset.
Do you think that's why we're not very good? Because Steve Bruce is spending all of his time up and down the country taking photos of pundits instead of training our squad?
It's a theory, Charlotte. It's a theory. I'm saying no more than that. All ideas are good ideas.
Yeah.
I just love the suggestion that Steve Bruce is somehow like the kind of Hugh Hefner of the football industry, just amassing this kind of stockpile of scantily clad images of various other footballers and managers, etc. It's quite disturbing.
It's gone weird today. It's gone weird.
It's gone weird.
Quickly.
Yeah. Well, it's taken us nearly half an hour to go this weird. That's quite impressive. It normally goes weird quite. A lot of people angry with me about saying I'd pummel Miggy. I wouldn't. I said I wouldn't. Luke Nicholson, there's no one looking through my window, and I know that. Let me have a little look. There's a lot of questions about being relegated. Let me see. Oh, goodness me. Do you think we will, if we lose today, Alex, do you think that is it for us? That was one of that's a précis of one of the questions I got.
No, because we aren't in the relegation zone. So they won't sack him until we're in the relegation zone. We've got Villa at home on Friday. Villa just lost to Sheffield United, haven't scored in a couple of games. Bruce will see that as, a chance to win it. And this is not me at all suggesting Steve Bruce shouldn't be sacked. I think he should. But they will always see it as if we beat Villa and Liverpool, Fulham lose to Man United, whoever they've got, will be 6 points clear of the relegation zone. So that's, I believe they will view it through that prism. If they got beat like 4 or 5-0 today, then maybe, but I don't think West Brom have scored 4 goals all season, so that's probably not going to happen. And also the fact that I always thought until this week that the players could get them sacked, but it looks like the players have already tried. So, and that hasn't worked. So unless the police get involved about this collection of pornographic images, I think he's here for a while.
Alleged collection.
Alleged.
Thank you. I have a question about today that came up from Liam Simpson. Is Bruce playing the same formation? Probably. And he's putting Willock in the Almiron role. We discussed this on the preview, available for patrons. If you're not a patron, consider becoming a patron. And I said I would be interested to see that because Willock has clearly got a lot of pace. We know he can score. I think he can... Alex, what's that face for?
Manquillo's on the bench. What the fuck?
Why
would you play Kraft? Even if Manquillo's only half fit, you would just play Manquillo for most of the game and then bring on someone else. I was just shocked by that Manquillo's on the bench.
Probably the mole. Or one of the moles. Chris, what do you think? Do you think Willock's in that Almiron role? And if he is, are you supportive of that? What do you think? How will that play out?
I mean, you're assuming there's any kind of plan, that plan has effectively been communicated to the squad, which given the last week's worth of activity might be a bit fantastical. But I think he could play in that role, as Alex said. As you guys say, he's clearly got ability there, and I think he's quite an intelligent player. He's more kind of mobile, and if you've got Joelinton in front of you, you really need someone a bit more mobile. And Willock, while he has been here, 4, 5, 6 games or so now, hasn't yet been bruised. So in terms of creativity, might offer a little bit more there. So I wouldn't be adverse to seeing it, but whether Willock knows what he's supposed to be doing himself, we don't know.
And by bruised, you mean all skill beaten out of him?
Yes.
Right, got it. Yeah, he's still got a little bit of hunger. We're never going to buy him. He's just getting game time for Arteta, I think. So it is about sort of, getting that exposure and trying to do it. Alex, do you think he's in that role? Would you be happy if he was?
I think he is. No, I'd rather we played. It's one of those weird situations. I'd probably rather play a striker in the most attacking role instead of a 21-year-old midfielder from another club. But what do I know? I like the fact that Willock's probably like coming to training, and one of the Steves has been like, "Fancy playing up front, Joe?" And he's like, "What? You're in." Like, just no choice. You're playing up front. You're playing at the tip of the diamond. They've had all week. They've had all week to prepare for this game. Joe Willock, you're going to play in the diamonds. We need you to be Miguel Almiron. You're not Miguel Almiron, but we've got all week to train. We've got 5 days. We're off Monday. 4 days to train. We're off Thursday as well. Okay, 3 days to train, and one of the days was being disrupted by a massive fight. 2 days to train. Probably didn't train yesterday either. So in terms of a plan, I'm not sure how you can have a plan when you spend most of the week off because you got a 1-1 draw against the shit Wolves side.
Somebody, Chalk Ice, said our best hope today is the players locking Bruce outside the changing room and coming up with a plan themselves. Chris, do you agree? I think
that's a fantastic idea, and we should all be posting the squad padlocks to help them in their cause for next week, if not this week.
Yeah, well, it's too late. I'm not going down to the Hawthorns. I'd never make it on time. It kicks off in 27 minutes.
Charlotte, it's a year, isn't it, since we were last there? Pretty much.
Yeah. So it's a year since our last match, Southampton, I think, Chris, that you were at. And then it's just over a year. I think it was around the 3rd or something that we played in that FA Cup. It was FA Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tie against West Brom at the Hawthorns. That was when coronavirus was but a twinkle in our eye, and now it's still here and we can't go to matches. That was a good day. A lot of inflatable penises. Let's have a look at this. Norman says, I watched Brighton last night and yet again they dominated but lost. With them being on 26, us on 26 and Fulham on 23, how many points do you think will be enough to stay up this season? The magic number. Norman's asking for the magic number. Alex?
Well, all of those teams have averaged about or do average around a point a game and either go on that or just below it each week. So you'd think 37 to 38 points would be enough. Obviously, that's those teams. Fulham are still on 23 points from 26 games, but they have Newcastle to play, so there's 26 definitely that they're going to get. On that basis, you'd be looking at maybe 34, 35, but I just want to be absolutely clear. There will be no celebration from me if Newcastle finish this season on 35 points and stay up. Doesn't change anything. It's not good enough, hasn't been good enough for a long time, and the manager needs to be replaced for next season because this team and this squad should be nowhere near the position they're in at the minute. And I'm sick of some people suggesting that the players aren't good enough. The players are good enough. There's a good squad there. Matty Longstaff can't even make the bench today. If Matty Longstaff can't make your bench in the Premier League, you must have some fantastic options ahead of him, both in the team and on the bench. Newcastle have got 3 first-team key players out today, yet there's still a discussion about who replaces them. There's still an argument to make. Should Jacob Murphy be playing? Should Andy Carroll be playing? Should Dwight Gale be playing? All of those other teams in that situation in the Premier League don't have those options that Steve Bruce has. And I think he chooses the wrong options. But this squad is a decent mid-table, pushing on a top 10 Premier League squad if managed and trained correctly.
Chris, what do you think? What do you think the magic number is?
Yeah, I was going to say around 34, 35. I'll go with 34 because I think Fulham's fixture list towards the end of the season is quite difficult. Obviously, they have been playing well and can and will pick up results, not least, as Alex says, against us probably. But yeah, I think 34, but exactly what Alex says, to celebrate finishing what realistically, if we do stay up, is going to be 17th. To celebrate that is absolutely ridiculous. And just you mentioned a minute ago the Southampton game last season, a year ago today, went down there. It was a really good day. We got the 3 points thanks to Southampton getting a red card. But the context of that game, while not as fraught, given that we were kind of a year back in time with Bruce, at that time, we really needed a result there as well. So a year on, we're still, fighting against relegation and arguably in a worse position with, what £100 million worth of investment is ridiculous. But yeah, 34 points to answer your question.
Yeah, it's very depressing. I don't think anyone's suggesting that we'll be celebrating. I will be celebrating 30 odd points. That's really sad and crap and not ambitious at all. And if that's the remit, then that's the remit. But it's just not good enough, is it? Like it's been shite. It's been looking over our shoulder. It's so depressing. Let's not be too depressed. Yeah, I got a couple of good questions. Stephen King, one of our long-time watchers. Hello, Stephen. Bruce said it was the sports science team that suggested the days off. Surely decent coaches would suggest training on something else besides running, like tactics. So this is in response to this week's this mad week of news. We first had the Matt Ritchie story, and then we had a story about the fact that our team only trained, I think, 3 days out of 5 in between the last game and this game, and that they weren't happy with that themselves. And then there was another story about the Longstaffs not being happy. So lots of unhappy stories. But this one is, Bruce was asked about this one, about the team not being happy, or that they're not, or that receiving some criticism for the fact that they're not training every day. And he said that the schedule is organised weeks in advance, and it's the doctors and scientists that do it. So once again, not taking any responsibility, which is a theme in his managerial career. But Alex, what do you think? Do you think, I mean, I don't have any insight into what other coaches do or how they manage their teams, or do they get them to come in and sit and look at tactics? Could they? Presumably they could. They're on many, many thousands of pounds a week.
Yeah, I mean, what can we go on as fans? Well, we can go on Danny Rose's comments about training at Newcastle when he was shocked back then about the number of days off that were had at Spurs. They were lucky to get any days off at all. That happened. That's on the record. So we're supposed to believe that Bruce thinks that the idea that we only train 3 times this week is ridiculous. Okay, what's ridiculous, Steve? Then there's the argument that he gave the players unexpectedly 2 days off afterwards. How are you supposed to have a debrief? It's a little bit kind of childish, this, but surely when the game is freshest, that's when you have your debrief. We've got Darren Bent, who talks about when Sunderland lost 7-2 at Chelsea in 2010. That Steve Bruce basically just didn't analyse that game at all with the squad. Had a bad game, we'll move on. Well, that doesn't work when you're in a relegation battle, because you have to try and improve things. Why do we only play well for 20 minutes in games? Why do we concede goals from the flanks? We never seem to come up with solutions to these pressing questions. And the fact that less work seems to be our solution as a football club compared to more work kind of gives you... But the big thing about this story, all these stories have done is confirmed what a lot of Newcastle fans could tell and knew already without the fine details. So we knew the team trained badly because of the performances, because of the injuries. We knew there was unhappiness in the camp, because it's baffling that certain players who the manager has talked up a lot can't get in the team when we'll have a team who doesn't score goals and win games. That doesn't make any sense. So all these leaks and the stories promoted by Craig Hope in the Daily Mail have done, is confirm what we already knew, and that's why they're so interesting. If Newcastle were doing absolutely brilliantly, it wouldn't be a story about how many times you train a week. No one would care, because in this results business, they would be achieving what they're paid to achieve. It's the fact that they're fallen so far below the required standard at the minute, 2 wins in 17 games, that these things are big stories, and every single one of them comes back to the manager.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jonesy is asking if we actually have a sports science team, because the amount of injuries and stuff suggests that we don't. And then somebody has written, how can you plan weeks in advance for days off? Surely it depends on the circumstances. We are in a relegation fight. I mean, I'm not a sports scientist, which will come as a surprise to everyone watching, I'm sure. But like, presumably you would create some kind of malleable schedule. Like, here are the things we could do. Well, maybe they're still on furlough. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, completely. I mean, that's the red flag for me, saying that the schedule was planned, weeks in advance, and that he's being guided by the science. Where have we heard that before? But we know from reports and from other, just practice, that these players are tested, on a daily basis in terms of fitness levels, in terms of when they're getting into, I guess, what is called the red zone. And if they do need to adapt that schedule, then the sports scientists, I would hope that we do have on staff, because it'd be pretty concerning if we didn't, would be looking to adapt that schedule if it happens. So I mean, I think for me, that notion that it was planned in advance by the sports scientists and deferring responsibility is absolute nonsense, because I think any sports scientist worth their salt would be doing daily testing, as we know other clubs do, reviewing the situation. If you need to adapt the training schedule, they would do that. That's just basic common sense. Not even at Premier League level. That's probably something that conference clubs do to some degree as well. So yeah, nonsense for me.
Alex?
Charlotte, I think your point was excellent there, as well as Chris, is that why does the whole squad, every single player, need to be off? If it's a case of tiredness, the science that they use would dictate who needs a rest, who needs to have a lighter training session, who needs to do less running, who needs to do all of these things. Surely all of the data that they definitely do collect and look at would lead them to the fact. But the idea that the training ground, from my understanding, is just closed. All coaches, all manager, players just not in, just at home. It doesn't make any sense in elite sport.
Yeah, it doesn't. And then Thomas Callahan, who I don't think is a Newcastle fan, he has commented, I've seen your comments coming in, Thomas. He said he hopes that we do stay up. He said, in terms of fitness, with the slog of games, there is a case for days off if you play a Liverpool kind of full throttle football in order to recover. Or even, you could even say Leeds style. Like they're so running around. Very, very good English from me. Alex, your finger went up there. Go on.
I disagree with you slightly, Thomas. I think your overall point is right about the amount of running, but because Newcastle play without the ball relentlessly and consistently have about 30% possession, that's really hard. Playing without the ball in football is far more tiring. You're constantly reacting to what other people are doing. You're constantly defending. You're constantly tracking players. You're constantly running. And I think one of the reasons we have as many muscle injuries that we do is because the players are just consistently running. If you look at how much ground someone like Miguel Almiron or our central midfielders, apart from John Shelby, cover every game, it's really, really high if you look at the running stats. And it's because we're kind of set up as this terrible, terrible team who give the opposition all of the ball. And there's all of these like really negative results from that, including getting beat most weeks. And one of them is that, so I do imagine the players are tired. Don't get me wrong. It is grueling. It is a shortened season. But then so are the opposition teams. And use your squad more, Steve. Like, there's certain players. John Joe Shelby plays every single week, but he isn't very fit and can't really cover ground very well. Is that a wise decision based on the fact that we now need complete days off as a result? Like, why not play, someone else?
Yeah, it's a good question. Why not? So it is 15 minutes before kickoff, and of course, Steve Bruce has been giving his comments to the media. I've heard a couple of people in here talking about it. Please do comment if you're watching that with one eye on that. I'll accept it. Do let us know what he's saying. I'm getting a few people saying he's still blaming COVID 4 months on. Lee Foster says Bruce pre-match COVID, accumulation of points, injuries, great season last season. What? That's so weird to me. Like, I was really thin 3 years ago, so I don't understand the problem with my weight gain now. Like, that's like it's just such a weird thing to say. Who cares? Who cares?
Did he mention equaling the mighty Rafa again? That was the thing a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I hope not, because that was just unbelievably petty, the mighty Rafa comment. It's all about the accumulation of points. Once again, Alex, he's reminding us how the table works. What do you make of that?
Review, helpful primer.
You know, I'm constantly grateful, because before Steve Bruce came along and told me how the Premier League and any football league work, I just kind of rocked up at the end of the season and had a look. But now I understand you are awarded points for victories and draws, and that impacts on your position in the league table. And I think the players will have learned a bit as well, and we're just all learning on this crazy ride. And it's funny what you say about last season, Charlotte, because I remember last season being mostly dreadful and us failing to win in any of our last 6 games, getting knocked out of the FA Cup in an embarrassing manner by a Man City team who didn't have to get out of first gear. And like Norman often says, that Steve Bruce is basically still managing, in his head, he's still managing Birmingham City in 2003. Like, he's calling Joe Linton Jeff after Jess Horsfield. He's calling Miggy Christoph Dugarry, and he still thinks that, like, finishing 10th with 41 points or whatever they got, like, that is the pinnacle. You can't do any better than that. So for him, 13th, brilliant.
Yeah, it is very depressing, isn't it? This accumulation of points thing is very funny to me. I just think it's really funny. I think he I don't think he likes fans very much, does he?
I think he likes football. Does he like football? Does he like footballers? Doesn't seem like anyone. He likes pundits and journalists who aren't nice to him. Apart from that, he likes Lee Charnley.
Yes. Steve Timington says, "Are we at fault now as fans? Bruce isn't well. Shouldn't we try and get him help?" Chris, do you think we should be, phoning social services? Who would we phone?
I mean, are we at fault now as fans? I mean, Steve Bruce has been blaming us for a while, so now implies that this is just a new thing, possibly in his head. But yeah, Steve Bruce, while he's one of the lower paid managers in the Premier League, is very well remunerated for the job that he's doing of screwing up our football club. So no, I don't think it's on us to help him. He should have the ability at this level. He got the job. He probably interviewed for it. He was probably, 14th through the door of that kind of contact list in terms of interviews, whatever. So yeah, I mean, he knows the situation that he's in. He took his dream job. It's on him, not on us, I think.
You think he was interviewed?
I'm being hopeful, but I realised the ridiculousness of that once I actually said it and it came out my mouth.
I don't think he was interviewed.
I reckon it might have been a kind of like a tick a box kind of thing, like maybe a kind of 5-minute phone call. Hi, Steve, can you talk me through your career? Excellent. Any questions for us? You've got the job.
Alex, what do you think that process was like?
I think it was like, Steve, how quick can you get to China, mate? Because we aren't going to pay for you to go. But if you can get yourself
got a valid
there,
passport, you've got the job.
The job's yours. Do you have any coaching staff? They're all called Steve. Come on board. That was pretty much the interview. All done by fax.
There was a question that came into my head. Oh yeah, okay. So with this sort of "are we to blame now as fans" question that came in, it was a joke question. It was about getting Steve the help he so clearly needs. Opinion. But there is a bit of chatter on social media where we spend all our time nowadays that the fans should get behind the team, that we're not do you remember, Alex, was it last weekend there was a bit of chat about this, about how it's like the fans need to support the team and the team are going to be doing badly because the fans aren't supporting the team?
It was Martin Samuels wrote it in the Daily Mail that one of the reasons the team are doing badly is because when we were doing well, even if we ever have been, we were like 12th or 13th, and that is now doing well. People were still negative, and that's affected the players.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
Well, it's hard to know. It's hard to find the words. Sounds like an excuse. I'll not lie. Sounds like the kind of thing someone says when they are looking to blame someone else for their own failures. Interesting juxtaposition between Martin Samuels of the Daily Mail and his illustrious colleague Craig Hope. Both take different views on where the blame lies at Newcastle United. I'm with Craig. I don't know about you guys.
I don't blame the fans. We're not there. Nobody's in the ground. Chris, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's to have ambition and to want more and to have a notion of success that is more than just staying up, as is Steve Bruce's remit. I don't think is a bad thing, and I don't think we should be chastised for. I don't live in Newcastle. I'm not from Newcastle, but there does seem to, for whatever reason, be a real axe to grind with large sections of the media against Newcastle fans. Yes, I'm biased because I am a fan, but it is, it is palpable. Yeah.
Okay. It's 9 minutes till. I look at my watch. It's it's a real prop thing because the time's on my screen. It's 9 minutes till kickoff. Howard Walker says, "I'll admit it. It's all my fault." Howard, can you get behind the squad, please? We need to win. Okay, we've got one question, then we'll do our predictions, and then everyone can go and get comfy for the game. Would the panel go to this game if allowed? Yes. Alex?
Yeah, I'd be there because West Brom away is one of my favourite away games.
Why?
I think I like the ground. There's really good acoustics. The away end makes a load of noise. I think that you can get the train or a taxi from Birmingham really quickly so you can have a good drink beforehand. I like the West Brom fans. I think they make a decent noise. I think they're a really, really sound club. I really like the fact that the ground in West Brom is kind of a traditional working class heartland of the area. It's just a proper football club to me.
There's a Greg's right next to the ground in like a house. It's like a detached house, and it's a Greg's. I've got a photo of it. I took a photo of it last year. I was like, wow.
This is why we're such good friends. We have differing views on why we like things, and it works well.
I would definitely be there. I would be there. I miss being at the game, and I don't love the Midlands. Just getting there's a bit annoying, and I haven't spent much time there, and it's a rubbish reason not to like somewhere that much. But I did enjoy being there last season for that FA Cup game. Chris, would you be there if you could be there?
Yeah, definitely. I'd snap your hand off for a ticket to this game, to any game. It's a year today since last went to a football match, and missed it every week since. Just the opportunity to see people, to catch up. There's the kind of the sideshow of watching Steve Bruce's terrible relegation threatened mags. But I really miss it, just that kind of coming together. I think if we were there, it would be interesting to see what the kind of crowd responds to supporting the team to try and get the 3 points that you really need versus chastising Steve Bruce. But yeah, I would definitely be there. And I've never been to West Brom, so I'd love to see this House of Greg's that you've helped me with.
It's worth just going, Chris, when the restrictions are a bit more lifted. Go up and have a look. Before I get your predictions, Gil has written, "I looked around the stadium and sighed. Football is a business, and a tough one at that. But the green playing area, well, that really is the field of dreams." Sweeper by Steve Bruce. I don't know if that is actually from there, but I really hope that it is. Alex, what's your prediction for the score today?
0-0.
Right. A thrilling game. Chris?
1-1.
Okay, couple of goals. I'm going 1-0 Newcastle United. Joe Willock to score. Glenn, who does our graphics, has put some money on Joe Linton to get a hat trick. So he'll win a significant sum of money if that happens. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. So many of you, so many comments. I love it. I am back next Friday before Villa. I think I have a special guest in Andy Griffin for that show. So please do tune in and enjoy the game. Thank you for watching.